Just before we get into too many issues here, let's go back to the question of which borders are threatened and which borders are not threatened. I mean, my understanding is that no borders are threatened at the moment. Even the existing borders of NATO are not threatened at the moment, is that?
No, the existing borders of NATO can't be threatened because they are now adjoining friendly countries. So there's nobody there with any capacity to threaten the borders, at least not from the east. So the problem is whether the new states of Eastern Europe, the former Soviet satellites, should be included in NATO. And if we are reluctant to antagonize the Russians today when they're weak, it is an illusion to think that somewhere 3-4 years down the road we can suddenly move in that direction when they're stronger. Nor am I saying that we should treat the Russians as enemies. What I'm saying is we should have the friendliest political relations with Russia. And the President's visit to the European Security Conference is a good symbol of this. I look at NATO as a safety net, as an insurance policy. And you don't want to wait to take out an insurance policy when the house is already on fire.
But you say, why take out the insurance policy when there's no threat of fire right at the moment? Is that?
Yes, it seems to me that clearly Russia could be a threat in the future. No one can deny that. But Russia now is weak, disorganized, and despite I think right now their economy is in shambles. Their army and their whole military establishment, though it has a lot of weaponry, is not really organized that it can effectively threaten someone else.
Why do you disagree with that logic? Why provoke the Russians now by extending NATO closer to them, which would imply that the West thought, that Russia was going to become a threat?
Good. First question is, why should they be provoked if we say an attack on Russia is an attack on the whole Atlantic community?
An attack on Russia?
An attack on Poland is an attack on the entire Atlantic region. I don't see why that should provoke them, especially since we could make military. We have, for example, in Eastern Germany, we have military arrangements whereby no non-German troops go beyond the Elbe. We could make similar arrangements for Poland, that no non-Polish troops will be stationed on Polish territory. So then so what we would be extending is a security guarantee that places Poland strictly.
Well, I really don't see that would be more likely to happen if they are not members of NATO than if they are members of NATO. We don't feel that it's necessary to have Austria or Switzerland or Sweden in NATO. They don't feel the necessity. That doesn't make the Russians or others the arbiters of their political decisions. I think that if Poland and the Czech Republic and Slovakia and Hungary, all of them can develop stronger economies and a sense of national strength, that's going to be a sizable deterrent to, you might say, to Russia competing there. So far as competing for influence, there'll be a certain competition for influence anyway. There is one other factor here that we seem to be forgetting, and we did, though it was not a legally binding assurance, we gave categorical assurances to Gorbachev back when the Soviet Union existed, that if a united Germany was able to stay in NATO, NATO would not be moved eastward. And, you know, I think that the current Russian government is very clear.
So we would be, but that assurance was given to the Soviet Union.
That is right. It is not a legally binding, but it was, you might say, a geopolitical deal. And if we simply ignore it, then certainly if I were a Russian, it would be hard for me to interpret this, even though it may not be intended that way, and it is not, as anything less than an attempt to shut Russia off from Eastern Europe.
And that was a line that Yeltsin used today, that it would isolate Russia and sow the seeds of discord.
But here's a country that has 20,000 nuclear weapons. The possibility that Poland would start marching into Russia is zero. And I repeat, this is not, in terms of political architecture, conceived as a Cold War situation, because Russia can participate in the European Security Conference in all the political issues, but one has to keep in mind what a weak Russia has done in the last few months. When we were assembling forces against Iraq a few weeks ago, the Russian foreign minister appeared in Baghdad in a political demonstration that certainly in practice discouraged any American military move on Serbia. They have clearly taken traditional Russian positions, understandably so. But Russia thinks of itself as a major geopolitical player, which it has every right to do.